Do vampires really exist? That's the question we're sinking our teeth into today. Our journey begins at the intersection of mythology and reality, where we'll be delving into the rich, dark tapestry of vampire lore. From ancient whispers of blood-sucking entities to the modern, romanticized figures cloaked in mystery and allure, vampires have maintained a persistent presence in our collective consciousness. But where did these myths originate? How have they evolved throughout the centuries? And more importantly, why have they endured? We'll also be exploring the tantalizing question of whether there's any scientific basis to these tales. Could there be a grain of truth hidden within these stories of the undead? Or are vampires simply a macabre figment of our collective imagination, a symbol of our deepest fears and desires? So, if you've ever wondered if there's any truth behind these blood-sucking beings, stick around. Vampires, they're not just for Halloween anymore. Let's delve into the history of vampire myths, starting from their earliest appearances in ancient cultures. Our journey begins thousands of years ago, in the cradle of civilization, Mesopotamia. Here, the ancient Babylonians feared the Ekimu, a type of vampire that was said to be a vengeful spirit seeking to suck the life out of the living. Across the world in ancient Greece, similar beliefs prevailed. The Greeks spoke of the Lamia, a monstrous woman who transformed into a creature of the night, feasting on children's blood. Meanwhile, in China, the Jiangshi was believed to drain the life force, or qi, from its victims. Unlike the suave and seductive vampires of modern lore, the Jiangshi was a stiff, hopping corpse, a far cry from the charismatic Count Dracula. Speaking of Count Dracula, let's not forget Eastern Europe, a hotbed of vampire folklore. The Slavic people feared the Strigoi, undead beings that rose from their graves at night to drink the blood of the living. The Strigoi were said to be so real that it was common practice to drive a stake through the heart of a deceased person to prevent them from becoming one. Vampire myths also found their way to the Americas. The Native American chupacabra, a creature more akin to a wild beast than a sophisticated vampire, was said to drain the blood of livestock. In Africa, the Ashanti people told tales of the Asanbosum, a vampire-like creature with iron teeth and hooks for feet who lurked in the trees, waiting to prey on unsuspecting victims. These vampire myths, though varied in their details, all share a common thread, an insatiable hunger for human life force, be it blood or energy. It's fascinating how diverse cultures separated by vast distances in time all conceived similar myths. Were these tales mere superstition, a way to explain the unexplainable? Or do they hint at a deeper truth? From ancient tales to modern interpretations, the vampire myth has persisted, but where did it all begin? To trace the roots of the vampire myth, we must journey back in time to Eastern Europe. This region, steeped in history and mystique, is the birthplace of the vampire as we know it today. The origins of vampire folklore in Eastern Europe are fascinatingly complex. They are interwoven with societal fears, religious beliefs, and a lack of understanding about the natural processes of death and decomposition. In a time before modern medicine and science, these factors combine to create the perfect breeding ground for the vampire myth. Let's take a closer look. The concept of an undead creature feeding on the life essence of the living, most commonly blood, can be traced back to ancient Slavic folklore. Tales of these nightmarish beings spread like wildfire across the region, fueled by the fear of the unknown and the unexplainable. The vampire of Eastern Europe was often depicted as a reanimated corpse, rising from the grave to prey on the living. This image was a reflection of societal fears about death, and a misunderstanding of the decomposition process. When bodies were exhumed, perhaps due to suspicions of vampirism, changes like bloating or the growth of hair and nails, natural occurrences after death, were misinterpreted as signs of life. This fueled the belief that these corpses were leaving their graves at night to feast on the living. Death was a constant and ominous presence in the lives of people in the Middle Ages. Epidemics swept through towns and villages, claiming lives without explanation. In an attempt to make sense of these tragedies, communities often sought to identify a scapegoat, and the vampire fit the bill perfectly. The vampire served as an embodiment of these fears and misunderstandings. It was a creature born in the shadows of unenlightenment, a manifestation of the human need to rationalize the irrational, to give a face to the faceless terror of death. The vampire, a creature born from fear and misunderstanding, has its roots firmly planted in Eastern Europe. The myth of the vampire, born from the deepest human fears, continues to captivate us, reminding us of our shared history and the power of storytelling. Our fears and fascinations with vampires didn't stay in the past. As societies evolved, so did the vampire, transitioning from the realm of folklore to that of literature, and later, to film and television. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Our focus here is on the literary evolution of vampires. The late 19th century marked a significant turning point for vampires as they took center stage in one of the most influential novels of all time, Bram Stoker's Dracula. Published in 1897, Dracula introduced the world to the charismatic and sophisticated Count Dracula, a far cry from the monstrous creatures of folklore. Stoker skillfully wove a tale of suspense, horror, and seduction, and his vampire, with an aristocratic air and chilling allure, became the blueprint for many vampires to come. Fast forward to the 20th century, and the vampire genre was revived once more, this time by American author Anne Rice. Her series, The Vampire Chronicles, first published in the 70s, gave a fresh perspective on vampires. Rice's vampires were complex characters with deep emotions and moral struggles, making them more relatable and human than ever before. The series, with its gothic undertones and intricate narrative, captivated readers worldwide, further fueling the public's fascination with vampires. These key works and many others have played an integral role in shaping our perception of vampires. They've moved from being mere blood-sucking monsters to nuanced characters with their own histories, struggles, and motivations. They've become symbols of our own fears and desires, mirrors reflecting aspects of our own humanity. These literary works brought vampires into the mainstream and forever changed how we view these creatures of the night. Today, vampires have taken a bite out of pop culture. They've emerged from the shadows of folklore and literature and have made their way into the bright lights of the silver screen and the glossy pages of comic books. These modern vampires, while still maintaining some of their traditional characteristics, have evolved to reflect our contemporary society. No longer are they the ghastly, pale creatures lurking in the shadows, but rather, they've become charismatic, complex figures that captivate our imaginations. They've traded in their coffins for penthouse suites and their capes for designer clothing. Vampires have become a staple in the realm of entertainment, occupying leading roles in blockbuster films and hit television series. They've become the brooding anti-heroes, the misunderstood outsiders, and the romantic leads. Their stories have moved beyond the simple narrative of predator and prey, delving into themes of immortality, love, loss, and the struggle of maintaining one's humanity. In today's society, vampires have also become a symbol, a metaphor for various societal issues. They've been used to explore themes of addiction, isolation, and the fear of the unknown. They serve as a mirror reflecting our deepest desires and our darkest fears. But it's not just in storytelling where vampires have sunk their teeth. They've also permeated our everyday lives. From the fashion industry to food and drink trends, the vampire aesthetic has become a popular and at times a lucrative niche. These modern interpretations of vampires have reshaped our understanding of these mythical creatures. They've made us question our preconceived notions and have allowed us to see them in a new light. No longer are they just the stuff of nightmares, but rather they've become figures of fascination and intrigue. So do vampires really exist? Maybe not in the way we think, but their influence is undeniable. They've transcended from being mere mythical creatures to becoming a significant part of our cultural zeitgeist. Their presence in our stories, our fashion, our entertainment, and our everyday lives is a testament to their enduring appeal and their undeniable impact.